this? Are you excited about this?
Absolutely. I will talk about anything. Let's do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Truth Be Told, where honestly, it's in the name.
Yeah. What's up, Nick?
Hey, how you doing there, Sean? How's it going on this fine Monday?
Always good, yes.
Oh, very good. I'm glad to hear that. Welcome, everyone, pardon me, to Truth Be Told. It is Monday evening, so Sean and I are here to provide you with just something to talk about, something to discuss, something to comment on. Always good to have a conversation about things, and that's what we're here to do. For those of you who have watched in the past, you know that Sean and I are just having a dialogue, which we feel is important. So we'd like to come to you today to talk a little bit about idols. So yeah, idols is what we're going to talk about today. I believe we all have them. I believe we've all been in a position where we've idolized someone or really looked up to someone or kind of put somebody up a little bit higher on a pedestal than other people. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of get into that a little bit, talk about some of our idols throughout the years, people we've looked up to, things like that, and how that shaped kind of who we are, and sometimes the way we behave and the way that we talk. I know I have a few examples of that as we go through, so I'll be sharing those. Sean, we'll start with you, my friend. We'll get it going here. As a child, like when you were, say a kid growing up, 5, 6, 7, did you have someone like an idol, someone you truly looked up to? Like at that point, did you realize that?
I don't know. I don't think so. Mom was very, very big into the church, and so we were actually forbidden idols. The actual word, but it's looked up to. I guess you can say brothers and sisters. I mean, what about you? Like, because I know for me, it was probably looked up to his family.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, yeah, early on, I think the biggest one as a child was my dad. Sometimes sons really look up to their fathers. And I think, especially at that age, my dad was kind of that guy. Like, dad was the guy. Like, you wanted to do everything with your father. I wanted to follow him around. I wanted to, do all this stuff. I started playing Little League at 9. I think a lot of, in a big part because my dad was a ball player when he was younger, and I thought, this would be great, follow in the footsteps, play baseball and things like, stuff like that. So I think, the biggest one for me, like as a child, was definitely my dad, yeah, definitely. And thank you, Johnny Dean, for tuning in. Johnny Dean also mentioned his father as being like his hero when he was a kid. Which, like I said, I totally get that one. I think that's something that a lot of little boys do kind of look up to their fathers. And I know, Sean, you and I have talked about your dad before, and some of that stuff. So I know that he was definitely an influence on you. When you were younger, right? It seems like some things that you kind of take with you to this day, kind of were given to you by your dad. Just kind of his regimented style and being a military man and kind of that. That kind of thing. So I think that's pretty, that's pretty standard for a lot of us young men. So we'll move on a little bit then to get to when we're a little bit older, since, I get the church thing and I can see mom being like, we're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. This isn't going to happen. Be a good boy. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Let me tell you something, brother. No, I'm kidding. But like, do what mom says. That's one lesson I learned early on, my friend.
Oh yeah.
Definitely got to listen to mama. But now, obviously, at some point, we all get a little older. And, as far as that, when you started to kind of, develop your own little personality as you got older, what was it for you? Or what was that one person that maybe you went, yeah, man, I want to model myself after that, or I want to do what they do. What was that like for you?
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, it wasn't my dad, honestly. My dad was he was a military man, like you said, so he was very hard and stern. So when I was younger, I thought, I'm not going to be anything like him. Lo and behold, I'm exactly like him. So, but I don't know. I guess when I was younger, maybe my granddaddy, like there's always people that I looked up to. Definitely the members of my family. My uncle Reggie was somebody, my granddaddy. So it was a lot of those that that were in my family, just people that I had seen do it. Kind of like you with your dad. Like, but where do you lie? Like, was it just him, or as you grew up, who was it?
I mean, like I said, definitely the early years, it was my dad. Like as I got older, I watched, maybe unlike your situation, my parents weren't as discerning with what I watched, to be honest with you. Like we kind of saw the onset of cable, and we had a beta machine, so we rented movies, VHS machine, you rented movies. So I think early on, especially, I always wanted to be an actor. So when you look at the scope of that, one of my first real people, I was like, oh, I want to be like that. Obviously, was Robert De Niro, watching his movies, and man, I want to be that kind of actor. This guy, jumps into his roles, gained 60 pounds and played Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. This was one of those guys where just as a young kid who really wanted to go into acting, he was someone I definitely looked up to and I kind of idolized, for what that's worth. So I appreciated, the craft of acting and what he brought to it. I think probably about 11 or 12 as I started to get more into thinking about, they always ask you oh, what would you like to be when you grow up? Well, I always wanted to be an actor as a kid. And that was one of the people I totally looked up to in that sense. We do have a few other people watching. Delilah's in our chat here. Ket Hughes, who we all know, said that she looked up to her mom, which is awesome. Mom and dad, of course. Johnny was his dad, his uncle, and of course Leroy Selman. Because if for anybody who's watched any program with any of us, we all know how much Johnny Dean loves Leroy Selman. So I think he even met him once. Didn't he say he met him once, Sean? I think he did.
Said he met him when he was younger, yeah.
Right. So again, we all have people that we look up to, people that we rely on. Now, I guess just going a little bit more on that conversation, because I feel like when you idolize someone, you sometimes adopt their habits only because you see what they do and you think that that's how you should be. And I want to give you an example of one for me, because it's actually not a great example of how this can actually, affect, like you said, how does it affect your upbringing? As a teenage boy, there was a comedian named Andrew Dice Clay. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Andrew Dice Clay, and you know what he was about. And as a teenage boy, I was about 15, 16 when I first heard him do his stand-up routine. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's hilarious. He tells the funniest jokes. And then I started to repeat Mr. Clay's jokes to people. And I learned very quickly that was not the appropriate thing to do, especially asking a fellow 16-year-old girl certain things that Mr. Clay asked other people in his act. It's not something that you should be doing. And, I got myself into a little bit of trouble for that. And that's why I say, too, in a situation like that, when you have something that you think is funny or you think is man, it's a cautionary tale, because, again, I learned very, very quickly that there are certainly, know your audience. There are certain things you should not say to people when you don't, you just think you're being funny and you think, but what I said was actually hurtful. I had one girl that I said something, and I said it in a joking way, but it didn't matter. And she took it very offensively and actually reported me to my to someone, an adult, an adult superior, and I had to answer for that. And believe me, it was not a comfortable conversation. I didn't have a good reason, so it didn't really, I had no argument for what I said, in defending myself. Really, I was just kidding around. I thought it was funny, and not everybody else thought it was so funny. But I mean, does that anything like that ever happen to you, Sean, in that kind of a similar vein?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about my dad, then I guess, yeah, the regimented style. I guess the the attention to detail, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I was always afraid to could get out of line because he was so strict on that stuff. So I didn't really do a lot of that. I did. Maybe having the last word. That's something he was very, very big at, and that's something I kind of got in trouble with when I was younger. But I mean, I guess I didn't notice it as much when I was younger, or from him at least. But I guess, I mean, to your point about your stuff, I guess that did get me in a lot of trouble. I mean, even to now. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that. I mean, to your
even
point.
to now. Yeah, no. Fair enough, man. Like I said, it's sometimes you have to walk that fine line, you know, and I think that's part of one of the things I wanted to get into with this topic. I'm gonna it is in this vein, but I'm gonna kind of detour a little bit because for some of you who know, I have a couple of jobs that I do, and one of them I'm very lucky. I get to work at Soldier Field, where most of you know the Bears play, but they also host other events. And over the weekend, they had Beyonce was there for 2 shows. And if you would have seen the level of idolization that went on during this weekend, it was and this is the correlation I want to make because I also worked the Taylor Swift concerts. And if you look, there's a lot of parallels in terms of fandom and the way that a lot of these people idolize these 2 particular artists and the fandom that they have. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's amazing to me, Sean, and I don't know how much you maybe pay attention to things like this or like, you know, kind of this is in your purview, but I feel like it almost borders on just like they dress like these artists. They know every word from every song. It kind of like takes over their life in a sense. Like this is, they live for this sort of thing. And again, it's not a judgment. I want to make that clear. You're free to live however you want to. But I find it interesting because when you let someone who really you may not know take over facets of your life, I just feel like that's unfortunately setting yourself up for a big fail. And again, I know that's my opinion. That may be controversial to some people, but seeing these 2 particular artists in the fashion that I saw them and the fandom and the people that were there, it really struck me as just a little because I related in a couple of ways. And this is why I bring this up, because I'm going to ask you this question as well. Was there ever a time like you felt like you spent way too much time on something or someone in that sense where like all you could do was maybe think about this person or think about this thing and concentrate on it so much that it just kind of took over your life? Do you have an example of that?
No, do you? I never got into go ahead.
No, I was going to say the only example I could, not only, but like in terms of where I think it took over my life for a little while was actually about 16 years ago. Yeah. I got really bad into playing poker, where it really took over a lot of my life. And I lost a lot of money. Yeah, I won sometimes, but the losses were greater than the victories I had. And it led, obviously, gambling can lead to any kind of problem. I mean, I'm not trying to make this a public service announcement, but I'm relating the story to myself because I feel like this is something that happens a lot of times in everyday life. And truth be told, as we call it here, I just think this is something that I've wanted to talk about, I think, because I hope it can, if nothing else, it helps somebody else who may be going through something similar. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but struggling with something like that where it really just takes over a lot of your life. Like, I mean, I lost an entire paycheck one day going to the casino. Like, literally, I got paid on a Friday. I cashed my check. Me and some fellow vendors from Wrigley went to the casino, and I literally lost my entire paycheck in the span of about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of thing, my friend, yeah, disastrous, obviously. So I was just trying to see, like, again, we do have some other people watching.
Do that?
What's that? I mean, have you ever watched somebody do that? I mean,
No, I'm asking. Did you do that? Did you see somebody do that as they like your idol?
No. But that's the crazy part, is that poker became kind of my idol. It was my, you know what I'm saying? Like, it became the thing that I really like. You know, I had those, you know, poker became, for those of you who may not know, and again, I'm trying to get through this. The poker boom hit probably about 2003, 4.
Yeah.
Because it started to be televised on television. People started to catch on to, you know, Texas Hold'em and that sort of thing, where it became a national phenomenon. Obviously, there's a tournament every year in Vegas. Everyone knows about that. And you know, again, that's another story for another time. But my point being that going through that and having that happen as an example of just how much you can let something take over that you idolize and that you try to attain and try to become, how much that can really affect you. And I want to thank people who are in here. Paul is watching. Ben is watching. Nathan said good evening. So thank you guys for tuning in. We do appreciate your comments and everything. You know, again, for those of you just tuning in, we're kind of talking about idols, how they can affect us. You know, it could be different things, could be people, things, all that sort of stuff. So I just thought having a conversation about this, you know, could help someone, or just in general, just to let people understand what that means to people. Now, Sean, I guess I'll just ask you this, because again, given, like you said, the upbringing you had and the background that you had, did you find that when I'm sorry?
No, I was gonna say I can relate to the gambling thing, making something that's not a person your idol. I mean,
right.
I mean, anybody knows me knows football. That could easily be put in that category if we're gonna say something that you spend all of your time on. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's dependent how you look at it. I mean, because I mean, that's a very physical thing, what you're talking about, losing all your money. Yeah. But with football, I don't feel like I've lost anybody. But I don't feel like I've ever come to a point where anybody's worth giving up football for. So maybe that means I do idolize it. Maybe that's what that is. So I mean, just in the way that you were talking about the game.
Yeah. Thing. Yeah, for sure. And again, I find it interesting that even just we as people, like, sometimes these things are distraction for something else, or not necessarily in your case, but I'm just saying that in general, a lot of people turn to things that become bigger things to them because they're either looking for something or they're doing some other sort of thing, and it just becomes this great big thing that overtakes them. And again, to get back to the question that you posed up here, how did your idol affect your upbringing? I don't necessarily the upbringing in terms of, but when your life is impacted in such a way, like I said, when you're gambling your money away, essentially, it really leads to other things because other problems then happen. Because now you're in a situation where you don't have any money. So what are you doing? You're asking people if you can borrow money. Whether you're asking a family member just for a quick favor or you're doing something like that. And it really just leads, I think, to sorry, I apologize. I laugh because in the comments, Scott Thaler said he wanted to be Paul McCartney. And that's not necessarily funny, but I just thought to put that in there was kind of to break up a little bit of what we're talking about. We got a little serious here for a moment. So to see Scott put in there, he wanted to be Paul McCartney. But Scott, here's the more important question. Did you want to be the first Paul McCartney or the Paul McCartney that replaced the first one when apparently he died in a car crash? So which Paul McCartney did you want to be? I just think that's an important question to ask. Anyways, but again, we want to thank everyone in our comments for, Paul, Nathan, Scott, Delilah, Ben, anybody else. Scott apparently had Eric Clapton at his guitar idol, which nothing wrong with that. Eric Clapton is a fabulous guitar player, and I could see that. Again, Sean, I just sorry. I want to apologize to everyone for one thing. I will say this. I had a very long 10 days, and I really had a specific idea in mind with this topic, and I kind of got off topic a little bit, so I do want to apologize for that. I'm trying to bring it back now, and I'm just and of course, I appreciate everybody in the comments, and so I was just trying to get through those two. So again, I'm a little just trying to find my footing here. I do apologize. I love all of you guys. I thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in to see Sean and I talk about whatever it is that we're talking about. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that. So thank you guys again for watching. To get back on track a little bit here, Sean, excuse me. There's one specific thing as far as like when you talk about like idols and people that or things that you hold in higher regard than other things, and that's meeting them sometimes or having that thing come to fruition, and then it happens for you, and then it's not what you expect it to be. And I always find that when I hear stories of people saying, like, the comedy saying, or the one common saying is, don't ever meet your idols, right? You'll be disappointed because you put so much into this, and then you happen to come across that, or you meet that person, and it's not what you expected. Thank you, Andrew, for tuning in. Well, we appreciate that as well. But yeah. Sorry. By the way, the comments are phenomenal, and we love interacting with you guys. So thank you, Andrew. We probably should maybe have a conversation with your therapist and tell them a little bit more about you. I'm just saying. But if he sent you the link, my friend, then that's pretty good. I like that. But yeah, I mean, has that ever been like? Have you ever met anyone that you may, like, even if it's a sports idol or a musician or somebody that you met that you thought, man, I can't wait to meet this person and that thing, and then you just go, wow, that guy is not what I thought he was, or that person was not what I thought it was. You ever had a situation like that?
No, I'm trying to think if there's anybody how to put in that category. I mean, I think of Michael Jackson. I've never been somebody that really is eager to meet everybody. I've lived in kind of a realistic stage, but I think if there's somebody that I really liked a lot, Michael Jackson was one of them. He passed. Doug Williams, obviously I talk about him a lot. He's in Washington, but I'm not really breaking down any doors to meet him, I guess. You know what I mean? Like Barry Sanders, another one. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm not giving in depth, but that I just don't. I have never met him, and I mean, if I did, it would be great. I mean, I think it would be pretty cool, but it wouldn't be. I don't know. I wouldn't be awestruck.
Okay.
What about yourself? Did you meet anybody?
Well, okay, so I won't lie. For a period of time, and one of the periods of time was when I was in New York for a little while, and I would go kind of like stalk the Broadway stage doors after performances to meet the famous people who were in these shows. Because again, I wanted to be an actor, so I thought, well, I want to meet actors. These are people I've seen on television or in movies, and now they're doing Broadway, and it's like, ooh, I can't wait to meet them. And so I don't really want to, I'll be honest, I don't want to do I love it. See, Andrew has an example. He met LMFAO, and he said they actually, his language was they were complete douches. So there you go. Andrew did not have a great experience with meeting one of the bands he obviously likes. But I did. There was a couple of people that, and again, I don't want to be one of those guys who, because they may have been having a bad day, and maybe I just caught them at the wrong time. But there were a couple of celebrities I met that just really weren't that nice in terms of even just saying hello, or and again, you're coming off a show, everybody wants your autograph or whatever. So like I said, I don't want to disparage anybody's character unnecessarily, but it is disappointing though when you have an interaction with someone like that and you think, man, this is going to be great. I get to meet this person. I just want to talk for 30 seconds, and they basically just give you nothing and kind of move on, and you just go, okay, I guess that wasn't quite what I thought it was, but.
Well, there have been positives. I can't speak for myself, and I apologize because I guess I look at things a little differently in that regard.
Nope.
But Kat,
sure.
I've been around Kat for one of the 3 people that she's met that have been her idols. She's met, obviously, we all know she loves Kirk Cousins. I was there when she actually met him at a PetSmart doing an autograph signing. That was pretty cool.
All right, yeah.
And then she also is obviously from Michigan State, so she's a big fan of like some of their coaches. So she met Coach D'Antonio, who's their old football coach.
Yeah, Mike D'Antonio, sure. Yeah.
And then she also met Magic Johnson. But the funny thing about Kat is that she actually went up to Magic Johnson and she's like, haha, I know you're excited to meet me. You know what I mean? She has that kind of, you know what I mean? That kind of cool about her. So
yeah, that's awesome. But see, those are great stories. And again, I did want to flip this because again, I didn't just want to go negative. I thank you for going there with that because there's always a positive side to meeting someone as well. Like sometimes it's everything you hope it is and more. And so I think you have those situations too, where like when you meet someone who is an idol or a hero of yours, like Andrew had a story here in the comments about the lead singer of Lamb of God is really nice. He actually gave Andrew a smoke back in the day. So I'm sure that was, Andrew, you're killing me tonight, man. I love it. Thank you for tuning in. This is hilarious. But yeah, and I think, because it's important to do that. You know, I mean, I don't want to just be negative about everything. You know, talk about positively. And again, there were some actors I met that were phenomenal. And they were really cool to me, and they said hello. We talked for, a little bit, and they were very cordial. And so I truly appreciated, that as well. Scott used to get opposing teams' buses and get autographs of the football stars. Well, see, there's nothing wrong with that. That's, it's one of those things. It's funny you say that because working at a ballpark, I've seen a lot of obviously famous baseball players walk through Wrigley Field at any given time. And I think, because of my job, I'm not supposed to approach them. So I generally don't because, they don't want you fraternizing with the ball players. But, when you look at some of these guys and you think to yourself, they're pretty impressive. And I would love to just go up and have a conversation and say something, but I'm not supposed to. So I like my job and I think I'll keep it. But, it's just one of those things where, like you said, meeting someone or something that, you really, Scott said he was at Kurt Warner's house before he won the Super Bowl. Really? Well, that's pretty cool, Scott. I'll give you that one. That's a nice thing, right? Who doesn't like Kurt Warner? No, everybody knows a lot of that story. Guy comes back from being a grocery bagger to winning a Super Bowl. So good on you, Kurt Warner. For sure. But, let's go back to the Alia is watching. Alia, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. To Truth Be Told here on Monday, right? We diced it. We do appreciate you guys watching. Idols can be a bit difficult to define. Yeah, Nate. I mean, I don't disagree. There's in some cases, I mean, everybody. Because here's the other thing too. Everybody looks at things differently. Like Sean said, like Sean and I, this whole show, like honestly, I think Sean has been a great example in terms of, the way that he grew up and the way that he looked at things was a lot different, obviously, than the way I did. And so trying to, the two experiences are so different and just so on opposite sides of the spectrum that I'm not going to lie to you. I actually have a little bit more respect in that regard because and again, I'm not blaming anyone for this, but because I was so caught up in a lot of that stuff of looking at people like that and putting them on such pedestals that it probably, I have a dreamer mentality. If you guys haven't noticed, that's me. I love big dreams. I love big things. I like all of that. And I think sometimes that can get right. Some idols can be a bad influence. 100%, Nate. And like I said, I've mentioned some brief examples from my own life because, again, I know that that's totally, something that happened. And like I said, I really do think that it's great that Sean didn't have that sort of thing because, just because he's Sean. Sean is a good guy, and I love that, I've been able to because I want to say this too, folks, because I think, again, this is what this show is about. It's about sharing our feelings and our stuff and that whole thing. Like, I've had many a conversation with Sean, obviously backstage, on stage, in person, and all that good stuff. And I think it's important to know that listening to him has been something that's been better for me as in the last 3 years, because again, I sometimes take my own thoughts in my head and just they go a mile a minute. I think I'm an classic overthinker, and I think at times I like that Sean is able to kind of bring me back to just what we're doing and what the goal is and what all of this is, because I start, yeah, man, what about this? What about that? What are we doing? What are we doing? So I appreciate Sean very much, and I just wanted to say that. Nathan says, but there are some people who look to idols and make a difference, but y'all are making great points. Well, thank you, Nate. We do appreciate you tuning in, not turning in. You're not going to sleep yet, are you? You're not turning in? Okay, never mind. Bad joke. But again, have you ever met your idol? Right, we talked about that. Now, the one person, well, here, this is what I wanted to get to at some point as well. Is there someone right now, Sean, at your age? Sean, by the way, just saying, Sean is about to be 40, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to be all looking forward to Sean's 40th birthday in September. But is there someone in your life now that you went, man, I would love to meet this person? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a big, like, oh, this is my idol. But is there someone that you'd like to meet now in your life? About however you ever met. But was there someone you'd like to meet that you liked outside of mentioning, Barry Sanders or Doug Williams? Someone now currently that you kind of look up to or think, man, I'd love to meet this person. Do you have someone like that?
Yeah. The 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. crew on the station 98 Rock, based out of Baltimore.
Okay.
Kirk McEwen and Marianne Sirk they have a great radio show. It's I'm not a huge metal hard rock person, but they've got me into it just because of their back and forth, and I've kind of patterned a lot of stuff that we do that I've done with the different shows behind what they do. I just think I think the way that they do it, I think is kind of hilarious, and it just I don't know. I think if somebody can do a show where you don't even really focus on who's the people doing it or even what they're talking about, but their energy and their passion and their excitement for it is so much that like I said, I'm not a huge heavy metal or hard rock guy, but it's so much that I will listen to a whole bunch of, Metallica, all this stuff just so I can get to the other side of the song and hear what they have to say. So 98 Rock, Kirk McEwen, Marianne Sirk, I think they are amazing. And I would love to meet them. And then I don't want to consider them my idols, but
sure,
they're consistent with what they do, and I'm trying to be more consistent myself. So
no, for sure, no, and again, that's great. I mean, I have one example where it's kind of like here in Chicago, there was a gentleman by the name of Steve Dahl, who was, he was on everywhere. He was on the Loop, a couple other stations. He was a morning DJ, and then he was an evening DJ, that sort of thing. But he was a guy who I loved in radio. I listened to him all the time, and I thought, man, I would love to meet that guy someday. And I got an opportunity when I started doing some local television here in Chicago to meet the man. And like I said, it's one of those things where you meet somebody you've listened to your whole life. Like the guy's been on the radio forever, and you think you have this idea in your mind built up of what this guy is like, right? Or what you think he's going to be like. And it's funny because he was a lot more soft-spoken than you would have thought. He was a lot, he was nice to us. I mean, I'll be honest, he didn't know us from Adam. Like, we were just like, oh, we're big fans and blah, 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 this and that, So there's a couple other of us, for the first time meeting him. And, for the most part, he was pretty good. He was pretty nice to us and ended up becoming even kind of a contributor to our show. He worked with us on a couple of other different occasions, and it was just like, that's pretty cool. Like, he didn't have to do any of that. He didn't have to bother with us. But, he did, and it was his way of showing us that at least he respected what we were doing, and that was pretty cool. But, we have some more comments. Scott said Drew Brees was really nice to him, which is good. I think Drew Brees, from my perspective, he's a good dude, seems like a good dude, so that's good to hear. And here, I think this one is kind of interesting. Johnny Dean said that he hopes to meet Sean Spencer, Anthony Handy, and Nick Rosario. Well, Johnny, I'd love to meet you too, my friend. Trust me, if I ever get to Pittsburgh, you're the first guy I'm calling. I promise you that, my friend. I'm going to give you a ring, and we're going to go have a Primanti Brothers sandwich or something, or go see some Pittsburgh, stuff. We're going to go definitely do that. But but there you go. There's an example. A lot of you know we do these shows, and a lot of us are in different places. So some of us have never actually met in person, and so one of the funny parts is that, again, I'm not saying that Sean was my idol, but he's a nice guy. But I didn't meet Sean until 2 years ago when we did a draft show here in Chicago. Sean came in from Virginia, and I had been talking to him for a year online. And then, you sit there and Sean walks, and I'm not going to lie to you, bro. I just want to say this because, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, I thought you were taller. So when you came into my buddies, I was like, oh, hey, Sean. I'm like, and in my mind, I thought he was taller. But not that mattered, but I just thought it was a funny thing for me to go, I thought he was taller. But no, and so thank you, Johnny. I'd love to meet you as well. Handy as well. Anthony and I have not met in person either. Anthony lives in Oklahoma, which is the central part of the state. And I live in Chicago. So we have not had, even though we've worked together for 2 years online, we have yet to meet in person.
Did you just meet somebody in person?
What's that?
Didn't you just meet somebody in person recently?
Well, I did. Well, thank you, Sean. I was kind of working towards that. That's my guy.
Okay.
See, this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Though sometimes I think Sean has a beat on what I'm thinking, even though that's probably dangerous for him to try to get into my mind. I'm glad that he said that because yesterday at the Beyonce concert that I mentioned I worked at, Tina Winter, who was a member of our Let's Talk Football Roundtable family, was at the concert, so I was able to meet her in person for the first time, which is kind of funny because her and I live in the same city and have probably been in some of the same places at the same time, given the group that's around us, but had never met in person. So it was really nice to meet Tina yesterday as she rocked out to Beyonce. Scott Thaler, of course, also said he got his football signed by Doug Flutie. I can imagine Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie played here in Chicago for a little bit, so Doug Flutie would have been a nice guy to meet. So it's nice to hear that he is a super duper kind of human. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, again, we thank everyone for tuning in. We got okay, all right. Is that really true, Scott? Everybody wants to meet you to see if you're real. Do you feel like you're fake or something? Like why would you say it like that, Scott? We know you're real. You send us pictures all the time in the group chats and comment on all the shows, so we assume you're real, unless you're a facade. Are you a bot, Scott Thaler? Are you a bot? Are you trying to punk all of us by doing that, like pretending to do this stuff? Is that what's going on there? But anyways, well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you greatly for tuning in. It's an amazing thing. Johnny said that's a lie. There you go. Johnny Dean, ladies and gentlemen, always good for a comment or two. I love it. But yeah, listen, we thank you all for watching and commenting. Sean and I, again, if you guys ever have any suggestions for anything you'd like to hear Sean and I talk about, or maybe have an idea for a show, please feel free to let us know. We're both trying to come up, we always try to come up with stuff that we think could be interesting. Again, if you have any suggestions, ideas, or anything you'd like to hear us talk about, don't hesitate to give us that. So we want to thank you all for watching another Monday here on Truth Be Told. So for Sean Spencer, Mr. Spencer, I'm Nick Rosario. And again, thank you all for watching. Have a great week, everyone. We'll catch you next Monday. Have a good night.
Are you good with this? Are you excited about this?
Absolutely. I will talk about anything. Let's do this.